Hello, sisters. So first of all, apologies. I feel like I stumbled over a lot of words today. Um, I didn't get that much sleep and I have a headache. But before this, I was like doing stuff around the house and I was like, my headache's gone. I feel fine. But actually reading out loud, as I'm always surprised by, which I should stop being surprised by, is more work than I think it is and takes more energy than I always assume it does. Anyway. So apologies for that. Probably should have canceled the stream and rescheduled it for like next Wednesday, but here we are. Okay, so also just like some business before we get going. I had a few women message or email me about like a conflict that arose in the live chat last time I was doing a reading. So I'm just gonna like quickly reiterate some stuff. First of all, when I'm reading, I can't really moderate the live chat. I might glance up once in a while and like skim what one of you is saying, but I'm trying to read. And like the next thing is that the people who are moderators, like Maple, a possible person, like the few of you who like light up in blue, literally their only mandate is to remove men. That's it. They don't have any other job. Sometimes there's been someone who said like offensive language, like not like offensive like in a subjective way, but like language that's like quite serious, and they've muted them or kicked them out. And like also trolls, we used to have a lot of trolls on the channel, I don't know why, but or bots, they've all got. So that's their only job. Their job is not to like decide who is right or wrong about an issue and then like silence the ones they don't agree with. I don't think that's my job either. My live chat is, as I view it, a public forum for women. If I booted everyone I disagreed with even one time, like there would be no one left. So yeah, and what was the last thing? I don't remember what the last thing was, but basically like I expect you guys to either resolve your issues amongst each other or say we're not going to resolve this, let's stop talking about it. And that's that. I'm not like saying who I thought was right or wrong or what the issue was. I'm just saying like in general this is how things need to go, because like I'm not going to pay someone to like be a moderator to sit there and decide who's right and wrong. It's like that's not how I'm going to do things. So just, agree to disagree on things. There are even women who used to come into the chat regularly who I considered to be quite anti-feminist. Some of them even said they were against feminism. And I think it's great to have women pushing back against each other, Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Possible person. Possible person says it just seemed like a disagreement, not really something you could moderate. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I don't know. Okay. Especially when it's something like someone tried to look up records of something and someone else is like, I have personal knowledge that's not something you can verify, and I'm like, how is anybody supposed to decide who's right or wrong in that situation? Like, I don't know. Like, that's okay. Let's talk about the essay. So this essay really was not what I expected, because the essay is, as far as I could tell, was actually about the illusion of choice, right? So like in broad strokes, the she was like, okay, because this whole section of the book, right, these like 4 essays, I think, or 5 essays, are about basically her and other lesbian feminists who are in the academy, but she kind of like broadens it out to be like other institutions and stuff, which like makes sense. And she's like, okay, so we're in the institution, we are contributing to it in many ways. She's like, one of the ways is that like just by us being here and being like against the institution, it's like we are like the living tokens of the institution, which gives it credibility for being like liberal and open-minded and free thinking and all that shit, when we know it's not really. So she was like, yeah, we're being used by the institution, but we're also kind of using the institution. But how much can we really use it when at some point she said the words like, there's always a price to pay? And what I thought about throughout the essay was this concept that I've kind of gotten more into as I've gotten older. Like, I think in the last, like, 3 to 5 years, I've gotten more into this, like, belief, I guess, that, like, women really need to be self-sufficient. And that's a complicated thing to do when we live in, like, in a world economy the way it is designed right now, like in a capitalist economy, right? And when, like, basically all large institutions are run by and for patriarchal powers. Like, she even mentions, like, what was it, like, women's credit unions, women's bookshop, women's, she mentions a few different things, but she's like, we can, like, invest our money here and spend our money here in a way that it's like we're getting our money from the institution, but we're using it, like, to invest in our own community. So it's like paying it forward to other women. And I was like, those things are not really a thing anymore. Like, I try to spend my money on women's stuff, but, like, there, I would freaking love to have my money in a women's credit union, but I don't think those exist anymore. Anyway, um, yeah. So, sorry, kind of lost my train of thought. Yeah. So she talks about how, yeah, right. This is my thing. Yeah, I know, right, Maple? I've heard of them before. I also know there was, like, women's real estate companies, which makes a lot of sense, and especially if you consider, like, the mortgage aspect of it, like, that makes a lot of sense. But, like, they're all gone now. Like, there's ones that were, like, historically women's real estate companies where, like, there's one woman left in charge and, like, just, I don't know, like, there's a lot of really cool stuff that women tried to do to become, like, economically, like, independent slash, like, self-perpetuating, so that they, like, the money they made went into helping other women, that all those things have, like, died. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, back to my idea of self-sufficiency. I kind of view it as, like, she's like, do we consider it a luxury, or, like, should we consider it a luxury to not only have the bare minimum, but to have more than the bare minimum so we can invest resources in other women? And I'm like, I don't know myself if I consider that to be a luxury or not. When I compare it to other women in other situations, I absolutely feel privileged to have the opportunities to have the jobs that I have, to have, like, the rent that I have, to live in, like, a place with the cost of housing that I have. Like, I absolutely consider myself to be privileged, but it's like this illusion of choice thing, right? Where it's like, am I privileged compared to other women that I, like, respect and compare myself to? Yes, but am I privileged compared to, like, the people that we're trying to, like, fight against? Not really. So it's like all this illusion thing. But the self-sufficiency thing, it's like, so we don't have the ability to directly invest into our own community with the options that she referenced. But at the very end, she's like, so she wrote the essay in 1976, and then she's referring back to it in 1992. So, like, 15 years later, right? I can't do math. So, and she's like, now at the point where I'm writing this essay, this is me, like, paraphrasing. She basically is like, the fact that I'm self-sufficient is not actually for me, it's for the women around me, because the women around me who are in, like, less stable financial situations, they have me to rely on. Um and I'm like, yes, like, that's like, when I think about myself being self-sufficient, I think about, like, even, like, when I go to women's land and stuff, like, when I try to make it easier for other women to get there, I'm like, okay, I have the gas money already. Am I going to charge this woman the gas money that for this, given her financial situation? It's like all these tiny little things add up to be like, what is my self-sufficiency contributing to the women around me? Anyway, yeah, I just, so yeah, the illusions of choice, self-sufficiency, because also, like, at the end of the day, like, there's this one woman I follow on Twitter whose name I can't freaking remember, but she constantly is, like, networking with women in desperate situations. And it's like every other day she's like, okay, this woman just gave birth, and like because of the situation with like the father, now this woman doesn't have a place to live, and like she just got out of the hospital and she's homeless with the baby, and she's like, okay, good, donate to this. Or like the next day she's like, she just all constantly putting up these crowdfunders for like women in desperate situations. And I'm like, the only thing that we as like a collective of women can really do to like solve those issues as they come up is to have our own money to give to them. There's no like, I can't see any other alternative. So I know so many detrans women who have gone through periods of like homelessness or like housing instability, and I'm like, the only thing I can do is like give you $5. Like I can't stop the situation that ended you up in like at that eventuality, but we as women, if we're self-sufficient enough, we can have a little bit to go around. I don't know. So in that sense, it kind of leads me to this conclusion that I don't really know what I think about. It leads me to the conclusion that we kind of have a responsibility to get as much money from the institution, whichever one in question, as possible, so that we can support ourselves and support our sisters as much as possible. She brings up this issue of like, okay, so you have the job in the institution, and like implicit in that, which she didn't mention but I'm mentioning, is like you are self-sufficient now and you're able to invest in your community. Like, good. She's like, okay, so now you're here. Now what? You're a feminist. So either you have to put up with like the constant sexism and misogyny and say nothing so that you can like hopefully get the promotions that you need, or hopefully get like the hopefully get the, what do you call it, raises that you need for like cost of living, or you can follow your feminist values and ethics and speak up about the sexism and misogyny you're seeing in the workplace, and you're going to pay the price for that. So she's like, you're kind of in this like untenable situation. And I feel that so strongly. Like, I come on here and I voice my opinions like completely unfiltered, as you're aware. Although I do think I've gotten better about thinking through how I'm going to phrase things, like based on what I'm trying to say over the last couple years. Unfiltered. And in the workplace, like, it's so fascinating the way she talks, like the language she uses and the time period she's talking about. Like, I think about things like men making sexist comments about their secretaries and stuff. Like, that's the kind of like stuff I was thinking about, like, having like just making chauvinistic jokes with the other male colleagues, like while the woman is standing there who's supposed to be like on the same level. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of stuff it was evoking in me, this essay. But I think about my current jobs, and I'm like, I come across sexism every single day. It's a new kind of sexism, or it's like sexism wearing a different outfit, and I have to bite my tongue because I'm like, well, I need this money so I can like go to women's lands or like invest in like lesbian and women's things that I want to. Like, I'm like, I need, and to be self-sufficient, like I need this money for all these reasons. So I have to bite my tongue. And it does take a toll on me, and it does make me unhappy because it makes me feel complicit in the sexism that the other women I work with have to experience. Particularly if they're younger than me, it makes me upset. But like, what can I do? So she also talks about, this leads to like my like, I'm trying to relate my personal life to this now, right? Not that I work in some kind of great institution. I guess I work for like corporations or businesses or whatever. But sorry, I just got distracted by the live chat. Oh shit, I lost my train of thought. when she does like her postscript, the 1992 postscript, she's thinking back, right? She's like, the other thing that I somehow, when she's like, I didn't have a, what was the word she used? Like an active understanding, I think is the word, that, something along those lines. Like she didn't have like a working understanding of privilege. She was like, this assumption that the privilege I have is not conditional and is stable was completely misguided. Because like she alludes to like, I see the women around me that I thought were in the same position as me, and here they are in a much less well-off economic situation that I assumed they would always be in, right? And so my goal for self-sufficiency and being able to work under conditions that like align with my feminist values is to eventually be able to work in like a kind of like self-employed way, which I think a lot of feminists want, right? A lot of feminists want to be like their own boss so that they can decide what they will and won't do, and that the money they're making goes straight to them and is not, you know, benefiting an institution they don't agree with. But inherent is like this unpredictability and instability, which she is like, let's not take for granted that we'll always have uh this that we'll always be in the position that we're in now. So like I don't really know what the solution is. I know I've met some like women who live on women's lands, and a lot of them are like kind of self-employed as like online contractors, or like they do like virtual long distance work. And so like they have a level of control over their work that means they don't have to like interact with men a lot, and they can like geographically live on women's land and not be like tethered to like a workplace. But like let's not like assume that because you are in that situation now you will always have that option. And B, like how hard is it for women to find jobs like that like actually pay? Because like you can get a lot of online jobs like today if you want, but they pay shit, like transcription or something, like, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, this essay evoked a lot of thoughts in me about my own life and the women around me. And it's so funny, like me and my best friend, we text each other all the time, and we're like, what would you do if you won the lottery today? We're like, buy some land and make it a women's land, start like a women's center in my city, like start a women's bookshop in my city. Like what would you do if you had a bunch of money? And it's always like just invested in the women in my like geographical area, and it's like the constant pipe dream that none of us like, with inflation and like the cost of living and like my generation's like financial background, like because of like our parents like that's not the chances that most of the women in my generation are ever going to own property is like extremely unlikely. Like at least in Canada. I know the cost of living in the US is better than Canada, but I don't know. It's kind of depressing thinking about the resources we do and don't have to invest in just the women around us and our future feminist community, because like there's a difference between investing like sweat equity and like money. And when you look at a lot of women's lands, it's like, okay, or not even women's lands, like let's look at like a broad picture. Like you have like just institutions, I don't know if institutions are the right words, but like community projects created by women. They're all either lacking in like everything is owned and paid for, but they don't have enough women willing to do the work, or they have women willing to do the work and they don't have the money. And like the barrier to all of it is basically like geography. And why is geography the barrier? Because of where the women's jobs are and like what their financial situation like ties them to. And I just don't know, like you read about women's history stuff about women, like, you know, one of the women I met this summer, she heard the younger women complaining about having to save up all year to buy tickets and to get the transport paid for, and how I met some women who had like they came to like a festival only able to stay for like half of it because they were like, I have to go back to work. Like, even though I spent like my all year saving up to come here, I finally got to come here, and like unfortunately I can't stay the whole time. And one of the older women was like, well, you guys should just quit your jobs, um, so you can like stay. And it was this mentality of like basically things should be affordable, but they're not affordable. And it was such a disconnect. And I don't know, like I think about the amount of sweat equity that women used to be able to put into things that seems to not really be feasible anymore. Anyway, I don't know. My point is that TLDR, resources have always been like an issue among like feminist projects, and it's going to continue to be an issue. And I actually see things getting worse as the economic situation is getting worse. Yeah. Yeah. Maple says, anyway, this essay makes me sad for how much we've lost. Yeah. But I do think, like, I often feel that way. But at the same time, let's finish off the discussion this way. She's like the thing like the first 2 pages. She was like the thing that will keep you from that will keep you going. The thing that will keep your consciousness alive even when you have to like bite your tongue is like woman loving. She doesn't mean that, I don't think, implicitly in the lesbian way. I think she means it like in a general feminist way. And she is like, you need to have a spiritual life outside of your work. You need to have a sense of identity outside your work. You need to center your life around women loving, because it is like a self-perpetuating force. It is like a renewable spiritual energy that will keep you going. And I totally, she doesn't say all those words, but that's like the sense of what I got from what she was saying. And I totally freaking agree with that. Like, I totally believe in that. Like when I see these women doing like small networking things online to like help each other out, or when I see these women, just I've been in like Twitter spaces where women are just venting about like sexism they've experienced in the day to day, and it's like the thing that's keeping them going is the women around them supporting them and loving them, even if they're not that close, even if they are close. Like in all of it, it's the women around them that's keeping them going. So I do think like we've lost so much, but the thing we haven't lost is the women loving, and that's the thing that's going to keep us trying to build more stuff. um yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, I guess I'm trying to be more positive. What we haven't lost is the woman loving. And also, we have one thing that the women in the 70s and 80s didn't have, and that's like access to each other. Like our means of communication is so much better. So when we finally do get shit going, it's like so much easier to stay in contact. And like the amount of material support I've been able to offer women just because we're able to stay in contact with each other is like, unprecedented. I think like you wouldn't have been able to see a similar thing happening in like the 70s and 80s without spending like astronomical amounts of money on like phone calls to each other, like across across North America and stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, I see you guys talking about women's lands. Yeah. I do honestly, I've been in like a couple of different like online projects that are like we're going to start like a commune or like a co-op or whatever. Like, where should we do it? Like, how much can you invest or whatever? And I actually think that like step one to anything like that is not actually about buying the land or deciding who to do it with. I think step one needs to be like, how can we all get into like the best financially solvent situations as possible? How can we support each other? Like, who needs a reference? Who needs like a drive to like a job interview? Like, what are the things we can all do to get like the best jobs we can get? Let's make it like a 3-year plan that we're all going to get the best jobs we could possibly get. And then in like 3 years after that, we can all agree like, okay, this is how much of our income. Like, we the general problem is that nobody has like the amount of money you need to make for like the down payments on stuff. So it's like, I think we're putting the cart before the horse in general when it comes to that kind of stuff. Yeah, anyway. But that's kind of impossible because to do anything like a 5-year plan, you need to trust and know the women around you and like make a commitment to each other. And that doesn't seem to be possible in online spaces. Like, online spaces are definitely, the internet is good for maintaining communication. I don't think it's a good place for establishing commitment and trust. At least not beyond like step one, and that's not enough. Anyway, I definitely kind of got off the point today, but I think the discussion went better than I thought it was going to based on like my being tired and having a bit of a headache. All right, so I'm not going to do a live reaction video this weekend just because like I don't have time. My weekend's pretty busy. So I think the next time I'm going to see you is probably next Wednesday. If you want, where is she? Okay, I'll go get her. If you want me to do a live react video to something, please email me. I think I gotten 2 emails and like 1 comment. So there are a few options we have for the next live react, but I'd like to have lots of options. So email me something. I'll go get Momo and then we'll close out the stream. Every time I bring her to the desk, she's always like half asleep and like, what is happening? Momo, look. Your fans are here. Say hello. Hello. I love how many of you are quiet for the whole chat until Momo shows up. Can you hear the purr? So good. Sleepy cat. She's very like squishy and stretchy. Like, look. Ooh. Momo. Kitty bum. She's also like, she doesn't like having her face close to my face. And she doesn't really like being cuddled. The closest she gets to cuddling is like sitting on a chair beside my bed while I'm in the bed. Okay. All right, well, it's been a good chat. Also, I'm thinking about posting the essays somewhere online, like just screen caps of them. Not really sure where exactly, or how the best way is to do that. Just because like this book is out of print now, you can only buy used copies, which I recommend you to do on thrift books. I think this book, I think it was $11. It's not a lot. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, okay. So have a good weekend. I'll probably see all of y'all's on Wednesday. Okay.